in the shadows. I have a feeling that we're still quite far from this idea of Homo sapiens. I see nothing reasonable in human beings. And what's more, there's no other mammal on Earth which does what we're doing, destroying every environment we enter, and then moving on. We say that we're a Christian culture, this industrial world. But the Holy Book says that the Lord created the world and saw that it was good. And yet we, as Christians, transform this world. We change it in our own image to suit us, not leaving it as the Lord created it. Everything's been written, it's all been said, and now it's time to act. And it's up to us because in the end, we and we alone are responsible for the condition in which we leave this earth. What exactly can I do to make this world a little bit better? So I'm not just consuming more and more, but also giving something back to the earth, in gratitude for having the opportunity to live here. Slowly but surely, this has been the road I've been traveling, scraping a little money together for a piece of land where I could plant trees, and for whatever else I needed to get by. I'm just an ordinary man who sees the earth as his mother and tries to do the least amount of harm possible to her. We call this place Going to the Field. The name came about quite naturally, as this is a field with a bit of a forest. To the field. To the field. Since my childhood, I've always felt best out in the open, surrounded by nature, among the trees in the forest. This is where I've always felt most peaceful. Without being influenced or disturbed by anything from the outside world, without having to resolve anything. I was quite satisfied just to go and sit under a tree and feel life around me. I spent my childhood in Štěrba with my grandparents. There are 4 of us kids. My dad died in 1972 when I wasn't even 1 year old. Then we moved from Štěrba here, to Sečovce, to my mother's parents, and we've been here ever since. I did some ornithology in apprentice school. The sight of an eagle circling in the air gives me the sense of unrestricted freedom. But even more incredible is the view, since everything is below it. When I was 19 years, I had a particularly intense experience. The boys and I went to Tarbučka, which is a mountain near the Hungarian border. It was a foggy morning, and the 3 of us were lying in sleeping bags. Next to us was an abandoned pole, and I climbed about 20 meters up the pole until the clouds were below my feet. Just then a hawk came along and landed about 50 centimeters from my eyes. And we just looked at each other for about 30 seconds. It was such an intense experience that to this day, I still think it was just a dream, that it wasn't real. The sun at that time, it was a moment when all boundaries between me and my surroundings disappeared. It was complete reality. To this day, I can still feel that moment. There's no such thing as coincidence. Wild birds don't approach human beings without a reason. Anything could have happened at that moment. You knew that you were full of joy, happiness, that there was life, the world, the sun. I spent most of my childhood here, in this forest. I had my first hideout here. Kids like to look for hideouts, their own place, somewhere they can be alone. I used to come here a lot in the spring to watch the birds and the rebirth of nature. Basically, when I was here, I was better able to understand how those other creatures who share the earth with me live. I never had the feeling that I was superior to them or that I was above them just because I have the ability to reason or speak. One day I got up in the morning, came here and dug a hole. This is where my house will be. We put stakes in, there were several of us, and since then the house has gradually grown. Well, this is my house. It was built by the boys and me in about 8 weeks. The total cost was about 5,000 crowns. Nothing but natural material. That means that when the house falls apart, except for glass which can be broken up, the earth can be dug and planted again. I especially like to think about things when I'm working. It seems strange to me to just sit around. I don't want to say I never sit down, but if I don't plant, well, I can't eat thoughts. What makes me happy? Mostly just the fact that I wake up each morning, when Zornička looks at me, wags her tail and really wants to curl up next to me, and Zolka. That's about how my day starts. No 2 days are the same, and none of them are monotonous. It depends on the season and on what at the moment is most significant and essential for me to do, whether to plant or pick something, and of course the weather determines the pace of my work. I learned many crafts here, how to work with wood. I'm counting on making wooden bowls that I'll be able to exchange for money and for other things that I don't have and that I need to live. People tell me I'm a fanatic, but to me, the real fanatics are those people who carelessly and needlessly drive cars and always want to possess more and more. I don't know if it's the search for happiness, but I'm much happier here when I see that my work and everything that is here will leave trees behind, a piece of earth on which people will be able to continue to live. We're now standing on the plot of land that I bought. It seems strange to me to buy a piece of earth, because in principle no one can ever really own the earth. I'm convinced that we came into this world bare-arsed and without possessions, and we'll leave it bare-arsed and without possessions. Why don't they want to have a fence? Because I think the larger the fence, the fewer friends there are behind them. This is a cart full of joy with which maybe twice a year my friends and I travel through the country. There are places about 20 kilometers away where we usually go.